Oh, that's fantastic. That's really interesting. You picked up on that intimacy idea, Polly, because other of my authors have mentioned the same thing, and I think one of them summed it up really nicely by saying that it's she had some feedback from some of the folks who listened to her audiobook, and she said it's really just like it's like listening to a friend. So
Yeah.
it has this quality of just being close to someone and really having a private conversation where, as you say, I guess you get the same with a book, but you miss those elements of the author's voice, and obviously you can be pausing and there's intonation and all sorts of excitement. But I'm curious to also hear from you that you actually had that feeling when you were doing the narration, when you were recording the narration yourself, that there probably aren't that many occasions where you're actually in a situation where you're actually reading from your own book and actually going back and recapturing those ideas that you wrote down once, and they come back in a different form. There's
Yeah,
there's something else that comes back in that regard.
I think that's really true, Dave. And certainly with my first novel, Dogs in India, I didn't read that. I auditioned for it, but I didn't get the audition, which was really funny because they came back and said, you sound too much like a newsreader. And I was working for the ABC at the time, and I'd smashed out the
Oh,
audition
okay.
just before I'd gone on air. And I wasn't reading news, but I was doing a current affairs show. So I clearly sounded too much like Tracy Grimshaw. And I had a lot of feedback from people who knew me who got the book who said, oh, we were so disappointed when it wasn't your voice because we wanted to hear you telling us the story. So when I had the opportunity to have this book done as an audiobook, I was absolutely staunch
Mhm.
that I was going to read it myself, because I
Yeah.
think with a fictional book, there is a skill. You do need to be a voice actor, which I'm clearly not. But with a book like The Good Hustle, which was not only my professional experience, but it's also a really personal story about my own enlightenment and awakening and that pathway and what that's looked like so far. And it would have been really, really strange to have someone else reading about my life and my family and my hopes and fears. So it was very much that I was absolutely determined. And of course, because it was my story, the intonation and the sound of it was right for them. So what I found too, and I'd be interested to know if other authors have this experience, that for
Yeah.
those who haven't written a book, it takes a period of time in terms of once you've sort of laid your first draft down to the edit process, and then by the time it comes out again, it can be some months before you've sort of had any interaction with it. So by the time I got to go
Right.
back and do the audiobook, I hadn't seen The Good Hustle. I hadn't read it sort of cover to cover. I hadn't really interacted with the text for quite a few months. And I remember just reading it and thinking, this is great. Who wrote this? And it was a real sense for me when I was writing the book, often, and I'm sure other writers have this experience too, that the words just come through you. I don't believe I have any particular genius. I believe that story was right to come out, and I just pretty much sat at the keyboard and smashed it up with my big man hands, and
Okay.
broke 2 keyboards in the process. But it was just like, it just kind of came out of me, and I'd get to a point every day where I'd be like, okay, that's it for today, and I'd go off and do something else, come back, sit down the next day and just do it all over again. And so a lot of it's kind of like almost a stream of consciousness process where that information comes out, it's on the page. And for me, it came out in a very coherent and logical way. So I was having quite a fun time kind of rediscovering that work. So
Yeah.
it was a multi-layered experience, but there was definitely a sense of importance and being really present to what I was doing for others. It wasn't about recording it for me. It was about making sure that the best possible experience of that book was available for those people who were going to have an experience with it. And that's, I guess, very much in keeping with my values and my methodology.